Vincent.
Who is this? Vincent? Who's that? Wait. Am I Vincent?
Vincent, you are a murderer. A murderer.
Die, Vincent! Die!
What do you do with a fairly new franchise at the time that's doing extremely well? In the case of Resident Evil, you continue your mainline series and then experiment with spin-off titles. Resident Evil Survivor would serve as the first of many spin-off titles of the series. It's different, to say the least.
I know you think that I'm a murderer, but you're wrong. I would never do anything like that.
It's part FPS, part off-rails lightgun shooter. Yet it doesn't feel overly arcadey, for better lack of a term. While I didn't find it terrible, it's very much a game you could pass on. There is a novelty to seeing Resident Evil from the first person from this time frame. Seeing a world that's not pre-rendered backgrounds on the PlayStation 1, but 3D environments. Getting to see those familiar enemies from a first-person perspective is fairly fascinating. While Resident Evil had brushed off a fair amount of cheese at this point.
What? Oh no! Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
It comes roaring back here, and hits in a different way than the first title did.
No, this is me. I am Vincent.
So let's take a gander into what would be the first of many spin-off titles for the Resident Evil franchise. To note for this video, I'm using a controller instead of a light gun, and more on that shortly. I'm running this on a PlayStation 1 emulator with the graphics slightly upscaled. Looking at how Resident Evil Survivor came together, there's not a lot of information out there, but it did lead down an interesting rabbit hole. Looking on Moby Games for the game credits, pretty much all the roles here just bring back this one title. However, the company Tosei is mentioned on these pages as a developer. Now, if you've never heard of the company Tosei, that means they've been doing their job. Tosei is a company that's been around since 1979 and have worked on over 1,000 console games, and still do to this day. They're what you call a ghost developer. Companies have hired Tosei to either develop or co-develop titles. For the most part, Tosei keeps their name and staff names off of projects. In some cases, they go as far as using fake names in credits. This is just me guessing and I can't confirm it, but I'm guessing a good portion of the names in the credits here are fake names since they brought up nothing else. And this wouldn't be the last time that Tosei would work on these series. They helped out with Resident Evil 0, Code Veronica, Resident Evil Revelations. Allegedly. I say allegedly because this is just speculation. Only very few games have ever been confirmed to have been worked on by Tosei. One of them was Breath of the Wild, as they were mentioned in the credits. So looking at development timeframes, I'm wagering that a vast majority of the game was shipped off to Tosei to work on. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis and Code Veronica would have taken up development for Capcom. There's no mention of supervision from Shinji Mikami in the credits, who had been working on Dino Crisis at the time. Pretty much the only notable name in the credits for the title was Noboru Sugimura. Sugimura was the one to rewrite the Resident Evil 2 script into what would be the final product. He would also write the story for Code Veronica and drafts for some of the scrapped iterations of Resident Evil 4. So while he wrote the story here, it's obvious that it wasn't his main focus, which we'll get back to later. The North American version, which I'm playing here, did not have light gun support. This was due to the Columbine shooting in the spring of 1999, the year before. However, light gun support was available in other regions. In G-Man Live's review on Resident Evil Survivor, he mentioned that he didn't find much of a difference between using the light gun and the controller. The game's style is a bit of a novelty. They imported assets from Resident Evil 2, and the backgrounds here aren't pre-rendered. So there's something curious about getting to see these assets up close and personal in the first-person perspective. However, as a result, the animations are quite choppy, but hey, that's what they had to work with. The music here is good, although nothing what I call outstanding. Nothing overly memorable. Well, there's this one track that had this really off-settling, out-of-tune synth. While looking at other footage of the game, it looks to have been the emulator DuckStation that was causing this. As I mentioned earlier, Survivor is a mishmash of FPS and off-rails light gun shooter. The game makes use of tank controls that the series is known for. There's no quick turn, but there is a quick search button where our character will cycle through enemies, doors, or items. So this can be used as a quick turn away, although it's not perfect. Picking up items just requires you to go up and walk to them. There's no puzzle to deal with. There's just a few cases of find the item to unlock the next area. and we also have an unlimited inventory. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm just using a controller for aiming, and it works okay. It's not super precise, but it's not something that I found a huge frustration. When you shoot an enemy, the next shot will center them in your field of view. Now, this is fine with these slower enemies, but when it comes to the dogs, it becomes quite a frustration as a result to hit them as they keep moving around. FPS controls on consoles still haven't really come to a common ground at this point. Halo was still a year away, which really began that solidification. Our main pistol will have unlimited ammo, while other guns we pick up will require ammo, and that pistol mostly serves well for most encounters. Of course, you don't have to kill every enemy as well, you could simply run past them. It's best to save your ammo of your more powerful guns for the hunters or for bosses. Another reason for that is switching to another weapon takes way longer than it should. So you go to the menu, then you go through another menu layer, then find the weapon to select. It's really slow and cumbersome. I'm not sure why they didn't just have the old school menu here. That just worked fine in the past. If you are using something like the shotgun and want to reload, it's just best to just finish all your ammo and just let the game reload instead of going into the menu and reload, since it takes so bloody long. Granted, with the pistol being unlimited ammo, it's easy just to shoot away until it reloads, or if you enter another area and your pistol will be back to full ammo. Survivor makes use of a whole whack of enemies from the past titles. There's also the addition of these troopers, and which is their only appearance in the series. And they're interesting to say the least. Are these like guerrilla guards or something? What sound is it that they're making here? Very much sounds like a stock sound. Shooting is fairly similar to the other games, as in how long it takes to take an enemy down. Tyrants will show up a number of times throughout the game, although they're pretty easy to kill with just the pistol. Once you get used to it, it's fairly easy to dodge their attacks and create space between them and fire away. You think they would be a bigger deal, but they're mostly just a bullet sponge enemy that, depending on what path you take, you may face quite a few of them throughout your playthrough. And on paths, one of the more notable features of Survivor is the branching paths. For example, here at the beginning we have some options. Each one will lead to different areas, encounters, and weapons. Eventually the paths will converge again and the process will happen again. This incentivizes playthroughs as the game is quite short, even for RE standards. Another interesting thing about these paths is the game doesn't really draw attention to it. There's no real indication this is going to be a branching path. So let's get into the thrill ride of Survivor's story. Twists that anyone can see from a mile away, and very unmemorable characters in a series not known for them exactly. Instead of Raccoon City, this game takes place on Sheena Island, which, hey, this is actually mentioned in the intro of Resident Evil 0.
An island that would become the second Raccoon City, Sheena Island.
There's also mention of Leon's name once, but that's about it. We're playing as a man who's suffering from the classic plot cliche of amnesia after a helicopter crash. He finds a man nearby with a dog tag reading Arc.
You look familiar, but... but I just can't remember. Arc Thompson, huh?
After getting some phone calls and some further information, the man realizes he is Vincent.
Vincent, you are a murderer. A murderer!
No, this is me. I am Vincent. It was all my fault!
Vincent is a higher up at Umbrella and is a cruel man who has done many cruel experiments on this island, and the game really likes to rub this in with the notably long notes we could find in what we're told by others. Hell, his own mother scolds Vincent.
Vincent? It's me, your mother.
My mother?
Vincent, please, listen to your mother. I want you to leave Umbrella. I want you to stop performing those terrible crimes and just come back home.
What a sick puppy. This voice acting is amusing. From what I've gathered with development, there must have not really been a whole lot of oversight from Capcom on this front. Now, for the first game, that was fairly unexplored territory.
So much for him. We got to the root of the problem.
And since then, they got a much better handle on it. So to have it regress here is pretty amusing. It doesn't quite have the charm of the goofy voice acting of the original, but there are some classic lines here that I'm surprised haven't gotten as much attention. And in a twist that everyone saw coming, it turns out you weren't Vincent, but you were Ark all along. You were a spy sent by Leon to figure out what was happening here with Umbrella on Sheena Island.
You're the detective. Your name is Ark Thompson.
What? Really? I'm not Vincent?
So basically, most of the plot can be summarized by this one scene in The Simpsons.
Okay, now you're you, I'm me.
I'm me.
Although the game is only just a couple of hours at most, it is well paced with what felt like the right level of difficulty. Just make sure you save most of your ammo for that final boss, as it will take quite a while to go down.
What are we gonna do, mister?
Yeah. What are we gonna do?
I don't know, but don't worry. We can fly as long as we have fuel.
If you've ever had that thought of how Resident Evil Survivor looked from the classic style, you're in luck. There is a Resident Evil Survivor Redux mod that's currently in progress. This comes from Aidan Watkins, who has made a number of very interesting Resident Evil mods. I've covered a number of his works on my videos on Resident Evil fan games that you should check out. It's just a small slice of the game so far, but gives you an idea of what the game would be like. The dude works pretty quick, so I don't think this is a fan project that's a long times off by any stretch of the imagination. Granted, compared to other mods he's done, getting these environments from rendered to pre-rendered will take more time. I'll provide a link in the description if you're curious about checking out this mod. Resident Evil Survivor is an oddball title, and yet fascinating. Spin-offs for the series would get much better. Some would be much more in line with the mainline series. Others would take an on-rails approach. Hell, this wouldn't be the last survival title for the franchise, with 2 more that would come out afterwards. And then there was an offshoot of the Survivor series into the world of Dino Crisis. So if you've never checked out Survivor, there's plenty better uses of your time. But it's not what I call terrible. More fascinating to look back on. We're only just getting started here in regards to Resident Evil spin-offs. And who knows, maybe at some point soon we'll get some news of the long-rumored spin-off title Revelations 3? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Die, Vincent! Die!